Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Shabbat. We are up to Perek Tet Mishnah Hey. Today's Mishnah should be Leilu Nishmat, Neria ben Svetlana, Aranbayev, Neliyahu ben Burcha Israelov, Menuchatam beGan Eden, Amen. The Mishnah returns to the subject of the previous chapter, which was the minimum amounts that a person must carry in order to be liable for the melacha of transferring. Hamotzi etzim kidei levashel betza kala. One who takes wood outside is liable if he carries the amount needed as fuel to cook an easily cooked egg, which the Mefarshim explain is a chicken egg, because less heat is needed to cook a chicken egg than other eggs, as the Gemara says in Masechet Shabbat, page 80b. Now, the Mefarshim explain the Mishnah refers to the amount of wood needed to cook a chicken egg after it has been mixed with oil and placed in a preheated pan. And additionally, the wood does not have to be enough to cook an entire egg, but only a piece of an egg that is the size of a dried fig, as the Rav explains. And as we discussed earlier in chapter 8, Mishnah 5. The Mishnah continues, Tavlin kidei letabel betza kala. The minimum for spices is enough to season an easily seasoned egg, which again refers to a chicken egg, and the Sefer Israel explains a chicken egg is naturally tastier than other eggs and therefore needs less seasoning. And different kinds of spices can combine with each other to add up to this measure, which Mefarshim explain. If a person carried out 2 or more kinds of spices and their total amount was enough to season a chicken egg, he is liable, because since the spices have the same minimum, they combine with each other to form that amount, like we spoke about earlier in chapter 7, Mishnah 4, but only if they blend together in flavoring food, as the Gemara says in Masechet Shabbat, page 90a. קליפי אגוזים, קליפי רימונים, איסטיס ופועה כדי לצבוע בהן בגד קטן בסבכה. The minimum for nut husks, which the Mefarshim explain, are not the hard outer shells, but they are soft shells that cover the nuts while they are growing. Pomegranate peels, woad or madder, which the Rav explains, woad and madder are plants from which dyes are made. Woad produces a bluish dye and madder a red dye. Now, these are all used to make dyes. You'd be liable if it's enough to produce sufficient dye to color the small cloth at the top of woman's headdress. Now, this is the net-like headdress that was adorned on top with a small colored cloth. People would not go to the trouble of making dye or detergent for a piece of cloth smaller than this amount, as the Gemara says on page 90a. Therefore, the amount that produces enough dye for such a cloth is the minimum considered significant. The minimum for urine, which the Tosfot explains in page 90a, that we're referring to urine that was left to sit until it fermented and then it was used as detergent. Alum, which is a crystalline substance found in the earth. Soap, which refers to a plant soapwort that was used as a cleanser. Saltwort, which is referring to an herb that was used in powder form to clean the hands. Or ashlag, which the Gemara on page 98 describes ashlag as a substance found inside the holes of pearls that was removed with a pointed iron instrument. These were all used as cleaning agents or to make cleaning agents. The minimum to be liable is enough to wash the small piece of cloth at the top of a woman's headdress, like we just explained what that was. Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda disagrees about the last group of substances. He says, Kedei la'avir ala ketem, the minimum for each of these substances is enough to pass over a stain in order to determine whether it is blood, which the Mefarshim explain. If a woman finds a stain on one of her clothes and does not know whether it is menstrual blood, which would require her to observe the laws of Nidah, or a dye, it can be identified by applying to it the 7 kinds of detergents listed in Mishnayot Masechet Nidah, chapter 9, Mishnah 6. If the stain remains after all the detergents are applied, it cannot be blood, but must be a dye. Now, the substances listed in our Mishnah are among those 7 detergents. So the amount required for this purpose, according to Rabbi Yehuda, just to pass over a stain to determine whether it's blood or not, that's smaller than the amount stated by the previous Tana, as the Gemara tells us on page 80a. The Rav does tell us, Ve'en halacha ki Rabbi Yehuda, the halacha does not follow Rabbi Yehuda. That is in Rabotai of Mishnah Hey. We continue now with Mishnah Vav. The Mishnah lists substances that have no minimum measure. Pilpelet kolshu, One is liable for taking out any amount of pilpelet, which the Mefarshim explain, a type of pepper that was used to prevent bad breath. It does not refer to ordinary peppercorn, which is included in the spices mentioned in the previous Mishnah. Here we're specifically referring to a type of pepper that was used to prevent bad breath. V'itran kol shu, any amount of itran. Now itran was used to heal headaches. A minimum amount sufficed to heal an ache that is felt in half of the head. A minute amount sufficed to heal an ache that is felt in half of the head. As the Rav explains, therefore it's any amount of itran. Mine besamim umine matachot kol shen, any amount of types of sweet smelling spices or types of metals, because even a minute quantity of these items is useful, which the Rav explains. Even a minuscule amount of fragrant spices gives a pleasant aroma, and a tiny piece of metal can be used as a needle for the tip of an ox goad, which is a pointed tool used to drive cattle. If one takes out a chip of stone that broke off from the stones of the altar, or some dust from the earth of the altar, or decayed remains of sacred scrolls, or decayed remains of their wrappings, he is liable for carrying any amount, because people store even the smallest quantity of these items in order to fulfill the obligation of putting them away in a safe place, which the Rav explains, since these items are sacred, even the slightest quantity must be put away in a safe place where it will not be treated disrespectfully, and therefore since people store even the smallest amount, he would be liable. Rabbi Yehuda says, even one who takes out objects that were used in the service of idolatry is liable for carrying any amount, which the Mefarshim explained that the term Mishamishei Avodat Kochavim includes any accessory that is used in idol worship, such as a knife used for sacrifice. Now, Rabbi Yehuda's ruling certainly would apply to idols themselves. Shenema, how does Rabbi Yehuda know you're liable for carrying any amount? The pasuk says in Sefer Dvarim, chapter 13, pasuk 18, "Velo yitbak bi'adecha me'uma min hacherem," and there shall not cling to your hand anything from that which is banned. Now the pasuk prohibits possessing any amount of something connected with idol worship, since the Torah and the Mefarshim explain that this pasuk forbids receiving benefit from anything connected to an ira nidachat, a city of idol worshippers, which must be completely destroyed, as the Torah says in Sefer Dvarim, chapter 13, psukim 13 through 19. So by extension, the pasuk prohibits benefiting from anything connected to idol worship, as the Rambam writes in Erchot Avodah Zarah, chapter 7, halakha 2. And therefore, since the Torah considers the slightest amount significant enough to prohibit, it is viewed as significant in regards to transferring as well. And the Rav says, in addition, one who removes such an item from his house has made an important spiritual repair to his house. As the Rav writes, V'tikun gadol hu osek shemutzi avodah zara mibeto. Ven halacha ki Rabbi Yehuda, the halacha nevertheless does not follow Rabbi Yehuda regarding the liability of transferring any object used in the service of idolatry. That is the end of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.